Hello, industry explorers. You check this out. I've got 5 women with me who are riggers in the entertainment industry. This is so incredible that I don't know that there's ever been a panel like this before. I am so excited to have you guys join us on this live stream. And I'm going to start it off with Mel Stinson. Mel, how are you? And tell us, how did you get started in rigging?
I'm doing well, thank you. Getting started in rigging, well, I was a stagehand for a long time, and I got to know pretty much everybody, and quite a few people that I worked with as, hands that moved up kind of kept pushing me towards, you should do this, you should get into rigging. I took a couple of classes, from local companies that I worked with. And I wasn't interested right off the bat. I was like, this is too much responsibility. I don't think I'm ready for this. And so it took a long time before I finally was like, all right, I'm done doing the stagehand and the supervisor work. I'm going to go into rigging. And so one of the companies I was working for, I went up to their head rigger and was just like, hey, what do I got to do to get in? And he was like, tie a bowline behind your back with your eyes closed is the first test. And I had a piece of tie line in my hand. So I did it while he was talking to me, and he was just yab, yab, yab. And I pulled it out and I was like, done. What's next?
Dude, nice. So
from then on, it was just, I'm only taking rigging calls, start training me. This is it. I'm getting in.
Wow. So then that person, did that person agree to kind of mentor you, or was that your in?
Yeah, he said that he would help train me, which was really good. He didn't know that I had previous experience. I had already done some down rigging, and I had friends in the industry that were already teaching me how to do stuff. That's why I was so quick at being able to do the bowline, because I've been practicing and have been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So, Katrina, tell us your story and how did you get started in entertainment rigging?
So I actually had an assistant technical professor at the University of Central Florida that taught a lot of the shop classes, and UCF at the time, and I'm not sure if they still do, but they were predominantly teaching a lot of like lighting, audio, musical theater, acting. There really wasn't a whole lot in like a construction base, carpentry, faux finishing, and there definitely wasn't any rigging. But I had this assistant professor that I got along with really well, and he had a rigging background because he had actually been a circus performer, and he had participated in a lot of other rigging things in his college days long before that. So he kind of handled all of that for the university. Him and I got really close, and so he started slowly teaching me some of those skills, like how to swedge cables, just real basics, on his own time and on my own time at the university shop. And then after I got to a point where he could see I wanted to learn and do more, and that I took like a very legitimate interest in things other than just climbing around the pipe grid and the black box, or the very minimal fly rail system that we had at the school, because our theater was actually an old chemistry lab at the time that had been converted into a theater. UCF didn't even have an actual theater and arts building at the time that I went
I can't even imagine that. An old chemistry lab turned into a theater.
It was really neat though, because it was the one building that had a really, really giant flue. So it could actually build a small fly system and actually store Scenic up high and have enough space to really function sort of the way it was intended to function.
All the world's a stage, truly.
That professor is the one that actually knew somebody at Universal Studios and pushed me to try to apply to the staging and rigging division at Universal Studios so that I could get a whole different type of experience learning to build stages and climb towers and deal with roof systems and anything that was kind of involved then in sort of the beginning of like performer flying basics for Halloween Horror Nights and things like that. So a lot of my original interest in that came from a professor that saw something in me and then really pushed me into other places that he was like, the things I can't teach you or I don't have access to, this is where you want to go. So
nice. That's so great that you had a mentor like that. Sydney, tell us your story. How did you get started in rigging? And also your Versal, she needs you to wave, or he needs you to wave. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that would be my mother. I just messaged her. I was like, you can't be that much of a supportive mom. This is actually a work thing.
I say hi to my mom in my live streams all the time. Sydney, what's your story? How'd you get started in entertainment rigging?
So mine is a little bit on the weird, interesting thing. So I was originally a dance major and I had like it set out like, I'm not going to do anything in backstage. I refuse. I want to dance. And then I went through a really bad breakup, and part of my like degree, we had to take theater classes. And so I took stagecraft, and the stagecraft prof walked up and he was basically, this is what IATSE is. This is how much they pay. This is the hours. This is everything. They need people this weekend. And it was, I went to school in Beaumont, Texas. This was in Orange, Texas. They're like, they need people for the load in and the load out of Annie. Your broke college students, go. And so I went, and I was it was for the local out of Beaumont, Texas. I was one of the few people they kept calling back. And nice. Yeah, so I started getting in the field, and I started doing like little lighting things, but it was kind of boring. And I was like, wait, there's something that involves danger and slight bits of chaos. This is great. And then I just started telling people I was a rigger. And I started like learning over to the side, because in Texas, women don't really rig. So I kind of would stay over to the side whenever I saw a guy was getting taught rigging, and I would learn that way. And so I would magically know how to do things when I showed up on calls, and then just finally was like, I want to go to Vegas. And so I told everybody that I was a rigger and that I could rig. I never would take anything dangerous that would be bad if I couldn't do it. But I would very much like only bring certain people to the side if I didn't know how to do a thing, and very quietly ask, how do I do the thing? But it was an entire thing of, yes, I'm a rigger. Yes, I can do things. And I just finally kept saying that enough that people started believing me and giving me work.
And you just kept learning and learning and learning. And I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but that's a sneaky way to do it. I mean, if someone wasn't going to teach you, you were just determined to learn anyway.
Yeah, the biggest problem in Texas is that women don't really rig. And if you try to rig as a woman and you don't know anything, it's not, oh, she doesn't know anything because she's new. It's she doesn't know anything because she is a she. And
you know what?
Yeah.
Think about everybody in the audience. Think about if someone were to say rigger or entertainment rigger, like what's an image that comes into your mind? Is it this panel here? Do you think about these faces when someone says, hey, I need a rigger for this call? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe we're changing that. Hey, okay. So Lauren, what's your story? How'd you get into rigging?
So I went to SUNY Purchase for entertainment design technology with a concentration in stage management. I kind of got pigeonholed into working in opera because I could read music and because I was what they labeled a technical stage manager. So I was more comfortable with the actual moving and the scenery and how that choreographed itself. So I went that direction. I ended up, as a favor to a professor, taking an internship with a company in New York who was doing some Broadway productions, and ended up as the assistant on Jersey Boys, where I met another company that we were working with, which was iWeiss. And then I spent the next 10 years with iWeiss as a installation of permanent rigging project manager and assistant project manager until I left and moved to PRG. So my rigging is a little different than the other ladies on the panel. I'm not so much an arena rigger as I am a theater rigger. And all of that was absolutely by accident, I'm gonna guess. But I learned a lot by baptism by fire because I didn't know it. You had to learn it fast. You had to learn it on the fly. You had to be on your feet. And if you weren't the best of the best that were showing up every day, you were not chosen to come back the next day. So, I think that's
there's kind of that. Yeah. There's kind of that added pressure of being on your A game because you know, as women, we tend to already be doubted. So there isn't any room for any mistakes that, you know, maybe our male counterparts might be granted. But you know what? Permanent installation is a whole other animal. You know, I mean, there's so many other aspects that you have to consider when you're doing a permanent install versus a temporary install. I admire that.
Yeah, so I was definitely thrown into the general construction version of rigging, because what is rigging to a GC is cranes and AC units and mechanical evaluations, not necessarily what we see. But as a finished trade, I was very much putting in the end user's equipment to a spec that they required. Sometimes not for an end user, sometimes for an architect or a theater consultant, which didn't necessarily translate. So you're doing the front end work, and then when the owner takes over the building and you actually talk to the people who are going to work in that building, now you're doing things again, because their ideas are very different than what is being sold as a bill of sale to the owner.
I love that. I love that. And last but not least, we have Renee Munholand, who is tuning in from Mexico. I'm not jealous at all. What's your story? How'd you get into entertainment rigging?
My story is back in 2008, when the markets, everything crashed and people were jobless. I ended up in that boat out of dental assisting, out of all things. And I found a stagehand job, and I think I've paid more money in concerts than, than someone who have gone to college. I paid enough to go to college, but in concerts. And I was like, is this job for real? Like, I could do this job. Oh my gosh, this would be my dream, right? So I signed up for it, and of course I got the job, and I started off as a stagehand. And a lot of riggers, I didn't know that was a job. They wanted to encourage me to be a high rigger, and at that time, it was more overwhelming, and I was like, I'm not ready for that yet. I wanted to continue learning what was on the ground first. And finally, I felt like I had reached my capacity of knowledge, doing lights and audio and stuff as a stagehand, more of a laborer. And then I was ready. And so it took me a little bit of fighting. I had to really work hard to get them to recognize me and to give me the consideration of training and whatnot. And I think part of that was probably because I was part-time. I did a full-time job during the week, and I don't know if they wanted to invest in me rigging skills if they were only going to get me like 3 or 4 days out of the week. But I was taking time off for certain gigs and stuff like that. And I got in, and I was already ready. I was like, I want to do rope access. I want to do everything. Like, I needed more. I just wanted to eat this industry up, and this seemed like a good avenue of gaining a lot of really good knowledge. So I got the chance, and I started high rigging, big shows and whatnot, and I've been in love with my job ever since. I don't think I've worked one single day of my life doing this job.
Oh, you are absolutely killing it, Renee. Awesome. I love all of your stories. Stageseminars.com. Will this be recorded and published for sharing with others? Yes, absolutely. You guys can check out this video on YouTube. Even when we're not live anymore, this will always be on my channel, Industry Explorers. Be sure to like and subscribe, please. So let's move on to our next question for you ladies. Oh, and I also want to acknowledge I am getting a request to include Sally Ann Dodd from the UK. Hey guys, I am thinking about doing a part 2 to this series because there are so many incredible women who are making it in this industry, and I love that. I admire that. We got to hear their stories too. So send me a private DM after this. Tyler, you were the only male rigger at your last gig. I am very curious to know how that went, buddy. I think that's awesome. Good for you. Pamela, I see you. I see you, girl. I see you everywhere on all of our online webinars that have been going on for the past year. I've got my eye on you. I want you on part 2. Yes. Rock stars. We've got another comment here. Love to all my rigging sisters and brothers, 9 years strong from the Midwest area. Props to anybody who has the determination to make it in this industry. Much respect. Yes. Kayla is in the solar industry, and I believe she has entertainment experience as well in the Midwest. Love it. All right, guys. So my next question for our panel, Are there any myths about women in rigging that you'd like to address? Mel, let's start with you. You're muted. You got to unmute.
I started rigging here in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, and I didn't know that there were very many myths about women in rigging because there are so many women riggers here. And so when I saw this question, I sat and thought about it for a long time. And I have to say, what I've discovered here in Washington is that we're encouraged. We're encouraged to be riggers. We're encouraged to do well and stuff. So the only thing I've dealt with is when I've flown out. And that was really only like one time in Atlanta. I mean, I went outside, got a boom lift, came inside, did what I needed to do. And the guys were blown away. They were like, "Are you certified? Who told you to get in a lift?" You know, and I was like, "Yes, I'm certified. I've been driving booms for years." I did not know that it was not a common thing. I don't know why. I just thought, I think because I'm here, I'm like, women rig. That's what they do. I didn't think anything of it. So as far as myths go, I mean, I'm still trying to think, like, you guys would have to educate me on that.
I love that that's your experience. I absolutely love it. And on the certification question you got asked, one time I was on a job site and I was making a suggestion and someone goes, "Do you look at little Miss ETCP over here?" Like kind of mocking me. And I go, "Well, yeah, I have that certification. Like I didn't bring it up. It didn't matter to me. I'm just trying to get the job done." And he goes, oh, like, yeah, I mean, like what? I don't understand. What is that comment for? Like,
yeah, it's strange.
I'm providing solutions to your problems.
And I could tell you about Tyler's last gig because I was on it. So it was
nice.
him and then 3 females, and it was just a rigging gig, and we've all worked together for years, so we all worked well together. It was great.
Love it. Katrina, how about you? Are there any myths about women in rigging that you would like to bust today?
Well, the one thing I used to come across a lot when I first started was the fact that I'm 5'3", so I'm not very tall. And when I first started, I was still in college or just out of college, and I only weighed about 145 pounds. And the first place that I actually learned to walk a beam and more arena style rig rather than theater rig, I was the only person in my 40-hour week training class, and all of the instructors were male as well. And that was the building where they had the 2 older females that had already worked, but neither of them partook in any of my training or anything of that matter. And there were guys in my training class that were taller than me, but thinner, shorter than me, smaller, all sorts of, different size, shapes, and builds. And everybody in the class bet against me that I wouldn't be able to complete the training class, because at the end of the class, you had to pull an invert half ton, 40 feet to the low steel to the bottom of the steel in a specific room and make the basket all by yourself. And then you had to break it and then send it all back in on your own to complete the training, because it was a requirement of the building that they understand that everybody in the building could at least meet that kind of basic weight requirement.
And for listeners who may not know, how much weight is that when you pull it 40 feet up to the grid?
Well, it depends on the chain, the amount of chain that you have in the bag and anything else that you're pulling, if you're pulling the chain or if you're just pulling the motor body. I believe the motor that I pulled at the time, I did actually have some chain weight. So it was probably about 60 or 70 pounds, I think I pulled at the time. And it was the first invert motor I'd also ever pulled in my life. So it was definitely not easy, and it was a struggle. But at the end of that class, there were men in my training class that could not complete that task, that didn't finish the training. And I found out that the instructors had actually placed a wager, a bet on whether or not I would be able to complete the task. And I found out that all but one of the instructors bet against me. So one guy, in fact, did win the pool of money. And I kind of just took that as some fuel and kept going from there.
I have a question about that. So all but one instructor betted against you. In hindsight, did you notice any differences in the way that you were receiving instruction from those people because they may have had that implicit bias?
Honestly, I didn't. I don't.
Well, that's good. At least you get that.
Yeah, I don't think looking back that any of them were doing it maliciously, and I don't think it actually had anything to do with being sexist. I think it was just some of the older guys that they were just, having some fun between themselves and betting, because after that completion, and I worked in that facility for a year before moving to Vegas, that group of guys were actually the most supportive, the most willing to help me, the most willing to keep teaching me other skills that had nothing to do with the building or other areas to rig. They were actually, all in all, an incredibly supportive team that were constantly pushing me after that. So I actually never even found out who the person was that bet for me versus the guys who bet against me. And looking back, I don't even think it was relevant or that it mattered, because not a single one of those people ever did anything from there on out that wasn't to encourage me. And I'm actually still in contact with a lot of those guys. And I've run into them over the years, and with all of the accomplishments or different things that I've gotten to in my career, they've all been incredibly supportive, incredibly proud to say that they helped teach me, that they knew me in the beginning. So I actually can't say that I think that came from a negative place to begin with.
I absolutely love that. Sydney, are there any myths about women in rigging that you would like to dispel?
So I have 3 things I want to go through quickly, but first I want to comment on the thing with Mel with the "Are you certified?" I've actually been asked.
I can pull that up. Oh, sorry, we got a Pamela sharing her experience. She also got mocked and made fun of for wanting to sit into the ETCP rigging class. The man who mocked her said, "Why are you here? You're just going to be in electrics anyway." Psh, dang. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Pamela. Sorry, Sydney, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. No, I actually had somebody drive up once that wasn't a stagehand in an electrics cart while I was in a boom lift and go, "Hey, do you know how to drive that thing?" And anybody who knows me knows that I'm not going to go, "Well, yes, I know how to drive it." No, and I'm in the boom lift, deadpan, look down. "No, I don't know how to drive it. I don't know why I'm in this thing." And just his look of sheer shock. It's like, dude, what? Just want to comment. I don't think everybody should do that, but I have no shame. But yeah, so I love it. I don't get a lot of. I'm 6 foot, almost 6 foot tall, so I don't get a lot of the direct jabs, and I feel sorry for people like Katrina who are on the smaller side who are more likely to get those jabs. Most people don't say it to me, I think, because I'm large and intimidating. I still get like other things though. And one of the big ones, the first one I want to touch on, is that we're okay with being called things like sweetie, little mama, darling, baby, no. Or more importantly, that we are being rude or mean whenever we say, "Please don't call me that. This is my name." Like, we should have the right to say what we want to be called, and whether or not a guy means it, it is very derogatory and very disrespectful to call us that. And like, you get one pass, and then if you do it again, I will not like you ever. And the second thing, I don't think applies to everybody in the stream, but I know applies to some people in existence. The fact that we all want children or families. I'm child free. I will never want children. Ever. It's something that I have known for my entire life. I don't like kids for the most part. I like being a pirate and being chaotic and not having a schedule. And I have been told before that sometimes
you and the kid in Lauren's stream.
I've been told before that sometimes women just aren't cut out for touring. And I have been told that by somebody who was very high in the industry, told me whenever I was starting out. And I fought with that from that point onward. But it was always the idea that women want to take house jobs, or women aren't going to be reliable because at some point they're going to settle down with a husband and kid. No, we're still a person. We can do the same job that a guy can do, whether or not we are going to have a family or not. And we're not all going to suddenly settle down at some point and retire with a child. If you want to, that's fine. And my last big thing, we're not all there because of like a father, a husband, a brother, a boyfriend. I guarantee you, at least all of us at some point have had a guy come up to us and go, "Oh, hey, who are you?" And you say your name. "Oh, well, who's your father / husband / brother / boyfriend? Like, who is that?" Automatically assuming that's how we got on the call. We got on the call because of some man in our lives. Like, no, bro, I'm on the call because I work. And that's why I'm here. I'm not here because of some man in my life decided to give me a helping hand and bring me on the call and I don't deserve to be here. We don't ask guys that, so guys should not automatically assume that I'm here because of some man in my life.
I love it. Bravo, Sydney. Yes. Going back to your comment about not calling us sweetie, darling, babe, hun, whatever. You know, if you do that and then we respond with please don't call me that, end of discussion. That's it. That's all it takes. And then we both respect each other from that moment forward. No big deal. So Kevin says, well, Mel, I guess I should stop calling you angels. You know, has she asked you to stop? If not, then I would think it's okay. But if she did ask you to stop, then I would stop, you know, but that's your deal, not mine. But you know what? I think that is the key thing to remember is when it comes to pet names or anything like that. If someone says, please don't, no, then that's as far as that needs to go, right? We're just here to respect each other and then move on with our job.
That has happened.
I'm getting so many comments flooding in. It's awesome. And guys, I see your questions coming in. I'm going to address those at the end for a live Q&A. Lauren, the lady with the kiddos that are coming in right when Sydney's like, I don't want kids.
There was a perfect cameo in the back.
It was so perfect. So what are the myths that you would like to dispel here?
The largest myth that I'd like to put in place, and I think it goes both sides of the fence. It doesn't have to be only gender specific. However, I've felt it in a very gender specific way, is that it's my choice to mitigate my risk the way I want to. So don't tell me that I can't climb the high steel or I can't be in the boom lift or I can't be on top of a ladder because you feel that you're protecting me in some sort of a way. That's my choice. It's my body. I know what I can do. And I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm risking myself in self-harm or I'm risking somebody else on my crew, their position to rescue me, to be in a rescue attempt. I find myself to be a level-headed person. I'm going to make those choices the best way I can. But it is my choice to do that. You don't have to insert your judgment on the situation over top of mine. I'm pretty good with being an adult at this point in time.
So as far as judgment calls are concerned, have you had to battle any judgment while you were pregnant or after you were pregnant? People saying, "Oh, you're pregnant right now, take it easy," or "Oh, you just had a baby, you need to rest, you need to take it easy." And I will just preface this question by saying, I see female bodybuilders like lifting. They're not lifting their personal best, but they're pregnant and they're lifting weights, doing resistance training. And I admire that. I didn't know that existed prior to like 2 years ago. So if I'm ever pregnant, yeah, I'm going to be in the gym still because I know that that's possible. It's possible to be safe in doing that. So Lauren, again, my question for you is, have you had to battle any of that judgment during or after your pregnancies?
So as you saw the cameo that rolled past in the background, I have a 6-year-old daughter and a almost 4-year-old son. When I was pregnant with my 6-year-old, I made the conscious decision not to announce my pregnancy until I felt like it was going to be visible to the rest of the world. And I was very lucky in that fact that I was not until very late in my pregnancy, about 7.5 months. So no one could pass judgment at that point. But I did find myself in a situation where I went on a gig and I was thinking that it was going to go this way. And I was prepared for that. And then mid-gig, it turned into, hey, you got to climb that harness. You got to get up in the front of the proscenium. And I was like, okay, I need like 15 minutes to just go through this in my head because clearly things are not in the same places as they used to be. And I'm now risking something else on top of myself. And then, sat down in a corner, just said, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do to change the way I would have regularly performed. And then got up and did it, and no one was any of the wiser. That was my personal choice. I don't know if that is the best decision, but I was young and a little dumb, and that's what I felt I needed to do in order to continue to be at my job at the potential that I needed to be at. So I think everyone takes that into their own personal being. Like if you don't feel comfortable in your body when you're carrying a child, then you're going to do things differently. If you feel awesome and you feel just the way you've always been, I say rock it on, because unless your medical professional tells you you shouldn't be in a harness or you shouldn't be hanging over, audience seating, I think that's your decision as the owner of your body.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I absolutely love that. Brian asks, will you encourage your kids to rig?
The littlest one can do it without a safety harness. And I don't know if I want to encourage that or if I'm going to squash that. I'm not sure.
You've already got to put that kid through the fall protection courses. You got to give Brian a
They
call.
already both know how to tie knots like nobody's business because we're also avid boaters outside of rigging. So they got the knots thing down on pat. So now it's just yes, you do need a safety harness. No, you don't hang over the side of the boat without a life vest. It is life safety equipment. Come on, we're not doing this.
Love it. Renee, any myths about women in rigging you want to address?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is training. I've experienced multiple times where I've had male counterparts that were new and began in the rigging portion confront me and ask me, what size rope do I need for this venue? What kind of harness do you think? What do you think about this new gear? But they're brand new. And when they go in the air, maybe my supervisor is like, okay, Renee, I want you to go with this guy and I want you to teach him, the ropes. I want you to give him some training. And then I go up in the air with them and they're like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. I'm going to learn this my way because I know things and I'm going to learn it, basically the hard way. I've been in this situation multiple times. The way I usually handle it is I'm like, okay, I'll stay nearby in case he needs me to come save him, from whatever situation he got himself into. But I mean, taking advice, especially from a female rigger, helping with training, we're not always the brawn, like a man is, we're not complete monkeys going up there and just I pull rope all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to make adjustments to, wherever our weaknesses are. And that makes us really smart and quicker in ways than, just a guy, throwing down a rope and, I've got this big muscle, and we've learned things in different ways and we've got really good tricks, to do the job so much easier and quicker and how not to get your rope tangled up, just all those sorts of things. And that's kind of frustrating to handle, but like I said, most of the time I'll just go off in the other direction and but stay nearby in case they need help and
Right.
not take it personally, but you idiot, you could have had a wealth of knowledge like some of these other guys up here don't even have, how you pull up a point and your belly gets in the hook, how are you going to get that out, things like that.
Yeah.
And we know that stuff. And we can make you save your back,
Yeah. Oh, yes. Absolutely. We will show you how to save your back because most of our strength is in our legs. So we tend to use our legs more. And because of that, we tend to save our backs. So if you don't want to be among the 80% of Americans who experience lower back pain at least once in their lifetime, come talk to us.
Yeah.
And I will say, Renee, on the topic of making adjustments, because, we're just adjusting to whatever weaknesses we have, we're just adjusting so that we can make it happen. Because bottom line, we're going to make it happen. I've often encountered, I'll be making some adjustment and typically it's not a rigger on my crew, it's someone in a different department will just come rushing up to me and go and grab things out of my hand. And I go, dude, what are you doing? I don't need you to touch this right now. I'm working. But they interpret the adjustment that I'm making for myself as struggle. So I guess if I had a myth to dispel, it would be that if we need help, we will ask for help. If not, don't interpret our adjustments as a struggle because that's not always the case. All right. Here's a quick fire, rapid round of questions. Actually, it's just one question I have. All right. Everybody unmute your mics because this is going to be a rapid fire. We're going to start with Mel. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy garlic?
I'm Asian. It's life.
On a scale of 1 to 10, you'd say 11. I'm there.
I'm like beyond there.
Katrina.
I'd say 10. I use garlic in almost everything I cook, and if it's not in the recipe, I've found a way to add it.
Love it. Sydney.
20. I once made myself sick from eating too much garlic.
Lauren.
I would definitely say an 11. I'm Italian. We don't cook without it.
Renee.
I say 9 because I don't like it in my ice cream.
Oh,
That's a good one.
I would try that. I would
totally valid. Yeah, I love it. Wow. Okay, awesome. All right, let's get back to some serious conversation here. This is also a quick question though. H style or Y style harness, and why? Mel.
I prefer Y style. I just find it more comfortable for myself personally.
Awesome. Okay, can I would like to ask a personal question if I may.
Okay.
So often in fall protection courses, people will talk about Y versus H style, and usually the topic of breasts come up. So have you ever, and this is a question for everyone on the panel, have you encountered wearing an H style harness or a Y style harness? Has it interfered with your breasts in any way? And do you want to speak on that topic? Maybe that's a myth we could dispel. Maybe it's true. I don't know. Let's talk about it.
I'm not well endowed in that area. So I don't have a lot of issues. And anytime I do get caught or snagged, I just kind of do a little movement and everything's fine for myself.
Yeah.
But like I said, I know some women who are a little larger and they have problems. So I'll leave that question for them mainly.
Yeah. Katrina.
All right, so on the flip side there, I'm a 36 full double D, so I am well endowed in that regard, and I prefer a Y harness. I have tried on a number of different H-style harnesses, and the way they sit across my breast tissue here and then get compressed in some fashion is always just more uncomfortable to me than the Y-style harness. And on that note too, the first Cirque show that I ever worked at, they actually had female Y-style harnesses from Yates, and they tried to give me one of those, specifically taking a look at my body and thinking that it would be better for me. And it was actually the most uncomfortable harness I'd ever put on in my life. I think I wore it less than one full day. I think I actually only wore it for one show call and then went and swapped it out for the standard men's Yates Y, and I've never looked back. What
was it about the female Yates harness that wasn't comfortable for you?
So unlike the men's that comes straight down and then has your positioning pieces, there's actually a small plate that sits here that has the positioning ring, but the plate is about 2 inches wide. So if you think about somebody that has a lot of breast tissue, I don't have 2 inches here for something to lay
Yeah.
flat. So what ended up happening is this plate would sit here and then would compress onto the inside of my breast this way instead of the H, which was going onto it this way. So it was actually more uncomfortable because it was trying to press up against my sternum. And I don't know if you've ever tried to like do lots of really, really quick moves and run across very, very large theaters in your harness and through elevators in and around performers all at the same time. Anything that when you're breathing heavily already because you're running and wearing it and it's compressing against your sternum like that only makes it harder to breathe, and it's just that much more uncomfortable. So personally, it was not for me. I know there was one other female that was a very, very small petite build but had almost no chest that wore one like that, and she was very comfortable in it. But obviously that was body specific. So what worked for her clearly didn't work for me and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Mel, you asked me a question in the private chat. Is it hard to find a harness that fits properly for your small stature? Is that for the panel?
I was thinking of Katrina because she said she's 5'4", which is the same height as my sister, and she had trouble finding a harness that fit properly.
So I would say yes and no. I think it was a lot harder when I first started, because back when I started rigging, we were in the era of the Petzl Navajos were the big thing that all my male coworkers had. And the way that specific style Petzl was built, there was just no way it fit my frame. Like Sydney mentioned too, I'm also, my powerhouse are my legs. And so I have really large thighs. So finding the harness that has the right width here, but also had leg loops large enough to get around my thighs was really difficult. I've always worn a Yates. I found it gives me the most amount of adjustability, and I've never had any problem fitting into a Yates Voyager comfortably, correctly, and well, and then hanging in it for hours on end if need be. I don't think it's necessarily too difficult now because there are so many more companies that make harnesses. I mean, you can look at the new Petzls, which are apparently a lot more adjustable, although I personally haven't tried one. New companies like Singing Rock. There are companies that are constantly getting out there that make more customized pieces now, that are building design for smaller frames, tapered frames, taller, skinnier frames. So I think if it's something that she's trying to get into now, she'll have a lot more ease of finding one than I did 10 plus years ago.
Awesome. I love it. Sydney, tell us about H or Y and why.
So I want to preface this where if we have anything that has to do with climbing, the only climbing I've done, I got my SPRAT with Brian over at CM a few months ago in like October. Other than that, I haven't done any climbing. The venues I work at don't climb. It's all lift. And then I've done a little bit of theater. So I don't have the most experience in this. Also, I'm smaller in stature. Like, I'm tall, but my torso is small. My chest is smaller, and I wear sports bra anyway. And you can't see my other shoulder, but my shoulders are very small. So I wear an H harness for a lift. It's like a basic Yates, and it seems to fit me pretty well. Brian can correct me, but I think for the SPRAT, we had a Y harness. I think it was a Yates. I really liked that one, and he's in chat. He can correct me. I haven't bought one yet because it's the pandemic and there's been no inflow of money. But I like that one better. I wouldn't use it for a lift though. It's too hefty. But as an overall harness, I liked the Y because I have an issue with H's that no matter how much I crank it down, because of my small shoulders, the shoulders are likely to fall off because of just how small I am. And I didn't have that problem with the Y style because the tension goes here. But on a H style, it all goes down here. And all I have to do is wiggle a little bit and out pops the shoulder. And it doesn't matter how tightly I crank it down. Like, I would basically have to have it cutting into my shoulders in order for it to stay put. And I would never climb with an H style.
Right. So I am going to ask, are you well endowed in this area? And then is the H style, how is it? How does it fit?
So I think I touched upon this a little bit, but I didn't like hammer it home. So if you were to put my chest on Katrina's body, it'd probably look like a larger chest. On my body, I do not have a large chest. And I also prefer to wear, it's actually specifically the Victoria's Secret zip up. That it's like a center clasp that you put together and then you zip it up. Sports bra, that's all black. And I prefer to wear those on the call. And they're extremely comfortable and they're padded and they're high support. And they also push them down. And it's great. And I don't have chest issues at all with H harnesses because at that point, I'm not quite flat, but it's just a little bit of a bump. It's mostly my shoulders and the fact that I very much have a feminine frame. Like, especially on my torso. My torso is very feminine. And so I tend to have issues with that.
I think this is a really important conversation to have. I'm glad we're having it because when I've sat in a lot of fall protection classes, it's always, women need the Y style harness because of their boobs. Great. But we're not getting into the real weeds of it. We're not talking about the broadness of the shoulders. We're not talking about, whether you're a B cup or a double D cup or, how your waist ratio to your hips. And we're not talking about all those other things. And what I'm learning from everyone on this panel so far is that, fitting into a harness is very specific to your body. It's not gender specific. It's body specific. Lauren, H style, Y style, and why?
I would say that for the most part, I'm wearing a fall protection harness, so not necessarily a climbing harness, and I actually prefer an H style. My H style harness that I was wearing when I was inspecting and doing that on a more regular basis, the reason that I liked it is actually a sensory reason. I like the feel of the H across my back as a hand, like a supporting hand. So to me, that feels more comfortable. It makes me condense my frame a little bit more. I have worn Y style when climbing. I feel like Y style lets my range of motion be more free and more natural than an H style. So I think for me, it's really dependent on what the project or the gig is and how much I think I'm going to be climbing a ladder. Because I do feel that H harnesses, no matter how nice I get the leg loops to go on an H harness, when I climb a ladder, they cut badly. So, I don't want to loosen them just to climb the ladder because that's, I don't know, anti why I'm wearing a harness.
Right.
But there are very specific instances for both for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And, when I answer this question, I often say it depends on the job that you're doing. Like, first and foremost, think about the job function. Are you doing rope access work? You're probably going to go for a Y-style harness with the ventral and sternal D-rings. If you are just doing boom lift work, or if you're just climbing ladders, you might not necessarily need a Y-style harness. An H-style may be perfectly adequate. And then from there, once you've addressed what job you're doing and the function of that job, then you need to say, all right, do I have a longer torso? Do I have a shorter torso? Do I have narrow shoulders or wide shoulders? Am I well endowed or does it not? Does it not matter so much? I've never had straps interfere with my breast in any way. So, and again, it's all very specific to the individual person's body. Renee, tell us H style, Y style, and why.
I'm definitely a Y style. I'm a Yates Voyager girl all the way. I've tried different harnesses, but I was really lucky when I got my first harness. I spent probably about a week off and on for several hours talking with a gentleman over the phone because one thing that kind of sucks is that there's not a whole lot of places you can just walk in and try on harnesses, and this gentleman knew like people in Cirque and all of that. And I wanted my harness to be able to do rope access because I was definitely wanting to do that right away. And I didn't want to have to purchase a second harness that has the abilities. And one thing about Yates is that you can take off and put on your ascender, chest ascender. So when you're pulling points, and you got to lay on the beam, you got to reach underneath the beam to break the shackle, you're not laying with that chest ascender, crushing you. And when you're rope access, you can have that, put it on, use it. And I've just always really been comfortable in those. H harnesses, like especially, I don't even know if they really make those for rope access. But the one thing I can tell you is that I imagine you would be blind because even as nicely snug as my Yates can fit me when I'm climbing beams and pulling points, once I go up on rope and you're hanging on that chest ascender and you've got your handle ascender or even your descender, you get this play where it's not even, it fits.
A harness stretch.
Yeah, it's not
a little
even
bit, yeah.
on your chest. It's
right.
Here. And if you had an H, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'd probably be blind. The cross part would be right here. As far as my my chest tissue, I'm moderate and I wear a variety of bras. I like to wear ones that have a lot of padding, but if I sweat a lot, it's like wearing a sponge. And then I do like the well padded sports bras also, you know, can be comfortable. But like sometimes they're so tight around my rib cage and stuff, you know, like if you're working 12 hours, you know, and you're sweating it, I'm a big sweater.
I hate getting the lines under here, like the not even rope burn. I can't think of the name, but like you get like the lines because it's been digging into you for so long and you're moving around and it's chafing. That's the word I want. It's chafing you. Ugh. Yeah. If it were up to me, we wouldn't wear bras. I don't like wearing bras. I often don't unless I'm at work because society just can't handle me not wearing a bra. That's the only time when I wear one. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, it would be great if we could get to a point where like that didn't even matter. And you know, I think the equivalent for men would be.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say the equivalent would be like, imagine having to wear a cup every time you went to work. You had to wear a cup, and anytime you climbed, like, because otherwise people are going to stare at you and think that you are, I don't know, a slut. I couldn't think of another word. Promiscuous.
Well, I really do like wearing a bra at work because, like, especially like if you're doing a motor move, you know, for an arena, you know, it's going to go from full house to half house, you know, and all the motors, the house motors are inverted, they're heavy, you know, and sometimes you're laying on the beam and you're using your body to press against that rope a little bit for extra friction because it, you know, you've got the invert body up. So I've had a few, you know, times where it's kind of gone across me there and I'm like, woo, I'm so glad. Oh, excuse me. I'm so glad that I'm, you know, protected.
Yeah. Love it. Here's a really great question that we received earlier, and it is one of my questions on the list. Ethan Gilson asks, what single word of advice would you give to a young woman looking to get into the field? My question, what advice, not even a single word of advice, but just what advice would you give women who are wanting to enter this industry? Katrina.
I think the obvious one is don't take no for an answer. I mean, I don't know how many times I'd be a millionaire for every time somebody told me no, that I couldn't do something, or no, I couldn't have access to something, or no, they wouldn't buy me the right equipment to do the job, whatever the case is. And I don't even think that's women specific. That's anybody. If you really want to get into any industry and you really want to learn about something, don't ever let anybody telling you no create a roadblock that you decide you can't get past.
Love it. Great advice. Renee.
I've got a couple of things.
Love it.
One would be, don't take things personally. We're working a high-risk job, and there's a lot going on, and sometimes things just can't be said in a nice way, you know? You have to be thick-skinned, and you have to set the emotions aside and just go for the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. Another thing too is ask for help. If you ever need help, ask for help. If you don't, you're not going to learn, you'll do it wrong, and you're going to endanger people. Another thing too is listen to your counterparts. Take all the information they can give you. Don't be hard-headed and like, oh, well, this guy's a jerk, or whoever is not a nice person. You know, use this. Always gain information from everyone you're working with. Read books, research your is stop and take a breath. If you're in the air, you're overwhelmed, you're extremely stressed out, you're just going to make mistakes. If you know you're at a point where you're flustered or under extreme duress, just because you're a girl, it doesn't matter. Take a break. Take a break, take a breath, think about things, give yourself a rest. Then When you feel more of sound mind, go forward, do the next job, do the next thing. And also, you know, we're doing a really high paced job. You know, we're going from gig to gig. You know, we only get certain hours sometimes of sleep. That's the nature of the game. Pick your gigs wisely. Make sure you have recovery time. Eat food. Take time out for yourself. Those things I think are all really important to pass along.
Absolutely. Mel, what advice do you have for aspiring riggers?
I say educate yourself physically, mentally. You will learn really quickly what your physical weaknesses are, and you will learn how to counteract with those, and definitely ask for a lot of advice. I don't know. There's so much. And I think I was lucky to be with so many female riggers that were willing to jump in and give me so much information right off the bat. And it was really helpful in learning. And definitely, when someone's telling you they don't know how to teach you, my go-to always was, then don't call yourself a lead rigger if you can't train me.
Wow.
Because I had quite a few people in the beginning I was like, hey, how do you do this? You know, what's the protocol for this? I want to learn this. And they would be like, well, blah, blah, blah. And then they would be like, never mind, I'll just do it. That's not training me. And if you can't train me, don't call yourself a lead.
Solid. Yeah, Bill, men bitch plenty. Pamela says there's no bitching in the roof. I made the mistake to complain about how freaking hot it was under the skin of the roof. Ooh, the heat. Okay, no bitching. Got it. Check. Yep. That's reality, though, is you can't complain about anything because, again, some people, certain people have a more implicit bias than others. And for those people, they're looking for reasons to not have you there. So give them 0 reasons. Sydney, what advice do you have?
So I have 2 things. The first one is actually really important to me, so I made notes on it. Because that's the kind of person I am. I'm also glad I'm not the last person to make a comment on this because mine isn't entirely positive. Just realizing that sometimes it really is going to suck. Women are going to be held to a higher standard. Because like I said before, it's not you suck because you're new. It's you suck because you're a woman. And it's realizing that you're going to have to work harder than the men. Like the way it is right now, you're not going to have a choice. You're going to have to work harder. And if you want to achieve anything beyond like basic local rigging or just like basic local work and small shows, you're going to be under a lot of stress. And it really is going to suck. Like, don't be afraid to speak out if something makes you uncomfortable. Also, like, find women who've been in it for a while that will be willing to speak up for you if you're ever afraid of it. And a really big thing is like therapy. Like, especially for me, getting therapy to help with the stress of there's this stuff that's happening to me and I want to change it, but I know it's not going to be an instant thing. Like maybe women decades down the road aren't going to have to deal with it, but I'm going to have to deal with it now. And I hate being the person who has to change that for future people. And this is the negative thing. It's okay if you find out that you don't want to do it. It doesn't make you weaker if you end up not being able to deal with the stress. Because I have thought like going on a call, especially early on, especially in Texas, the few times that I tried to rig and having to deal with that. Like I thought about quitting. It's okay. It doesn't make you weak if you decide that you want to cherish your mental health over like being the pioneer that pushes through and makes it where other women can do it. You don't have to. Do what makes you happy. And it's also okay if you just don't like rigging. Like it doesn't make you a weaker person, and you don't have to stick with something just because people will say that you quit because you're a woman. Like you don't have to stick with something if you don't like it or if you can't handle it. It's okay to admit that, and it's totally fine. And go do something else. Go do something that makes you happy. You don't have to stick with something because you're the pioneer. That's the serious thing. On the less serious note, to end my portion off with a happy thing, Seasonique, Seasonal, I don't remember what the other one is, and the depot shot. I actually got this idea from a chat pre-stream.
Ooh, let's get to that actually after this question. I'm gonna have a whole panel or a whole discussion just on that issue alone. But yes, absolutely, Sydney. Let's uplift each other. And if we find out that it's not what we're into, there's no shame in that. It's a very much like a machismo culture where people are trying to one up each other, and they're constantly trying to show who's stronger, who's faster, who's smarter. And, and again, women have to put forth so much more effort. We have very little to no room for mistakes because, again, people who do have that implicit bias are looking for reasons to not have us there. But again, if rigging isn't for you, it's okay to do something else. And again, no shame in that. We're here to lift each other up, not tear each other down. Sydney, I think that's a very positive thing that you shared with us. Lauren, any advice for aspiring riggers?
I think the hardest thing for myself to learn, and I'm still not very good at it, is that sometimes the loudest voice in the room is my own self-doubt. So I need to be able to turn that down before I can listen and accept other people's help or their advice. So I'm still learning. I'm a work in progress, just as all of us are. But I think it's important to know that you have to get over your own self-doubt to take the next hurdle.
And if you're someone who is thinking, can I do this? I don't know. I try to put positive things out in social media so that, because representation matters. I want other women to be able to see this and go, hey, that is possible. I do want to do that. And honestly, if you were to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I would love to answer your questions. I'm totally happy to, talk you through it, and I'm sure others on this panel would be willing to do the same. Cool. So we do have a question from Julie, and I want you to know that we are going to get to your question, Julie. But first, I want to ask periods and birth control. That's not even an ask. It's let's just talk about it. Sydney, we'll start with you because I know you already want to get into this topic.
I didn't realize we were actually going to touch upon it. I just thought we were just like, oh yes, this is an open topic for us.
Oh no, we're going there. I have something to say about this too.
So this is something that I actually started doing because of dance. Because it is sometimes very difficult to do dance classes while on your period and cramping and everything. And I found out it's also very difficult to do if you're working, because the men don't always understand when sometimes you have to disappear now to go to the restroom, and sometimes you might have to go puke in a trash can. Like it's a thing. And my biggest benefit, my biggest thing to say is get the depot shot or get birth control that makes you not have a period. It is fantastic. I'm on the depot. I go to doctor's appointments. They're like, when was your last period? I'm like, I honestly don't know. That is how long ago it is. And I don't have to deal with that. And it is something that I am very conscious, whenever I make my birth control choices, that I want something that I'm not going to have a period, so that if I'm touring, if I'm working, if I'm doing literally anything, I don't have the moments of, oh my God, I'm extremely sick because I'm PMSing, or, oh, I'm in the middle of I'm in a lift, I'm way in the air, I can't even come down because I currently have things around me, and oh my God, I'm cramping, or oh no, I need to go to the restroom now and I can't. And I've eliminated that as a problem factor. And it is a huge help to me.
Yeah. And so something that I don't really see in conversation typically is that when you're menstruating, or just it's a 30-day cycle, really. So at any point in your cycle, symptoms are different from individual to individual. I'm lucky enough that I've never had cramps that take me out for the day. And some people do. Some people have cramps and they can't do anything for the rest of the day. Some people get, period sickness and they get nauseous and vomit. I've never had those symptoms, so I'm one of the lucky ones, but it's just really important to know that everybody's body is different. And it goes back to something that Lauren said earlier, is it's not, you know, like, it's not your place to cast judgment on our bodies. It's up to us to take care of our bodies. So if we are in a situation like Sydney, where you are cramping, or where you have got to, you've got to go to the restroom like ASAP, you know, it's really not up to other people to cast judgment on someone for making it safe and then going to take care of themselves, you know? One time I was up in the grid and I had a UTI. It was painful. I felt like I couldn't get down because I was afraid of being judged, but I was in so much pain. And I went to the emergency room after that call. But, you know, I could have gone earlier if I wasn't afraid of judgment, you know. And another thing about period, I feel like I figured out the period game, and now I don't get periods. Menstrual cups. I love menstrual cups. Okay. Pads, you got to change a couple times a day. Tampons, you got to change every 4 hours, or else you risk toxic shock syndrome. Okay. The menstrual cups, they're made out of silicone, and you can just put it up there and leave it for up to 12 hours. I asked my OBGYN if I, you know, if it would, like, do I need to clean it afterwards? Do I need to, like, leave it out of me after 12 hours? Like, what, when I'm, you know, what happens after 12 hours? She goes, oh no, yeah, I use it. I take it out, clean it, put it back in. And I'm like, that's it. And I literally don't have to do any maintenance for hours, right? So I don't get periods anymore because I have an IUD. So, and again, I picked one that would not let me have periods because I didn't really want to deal with it. So again, love it. Menstrual cups for the win.
Can I jump in one more thing about the depot that's specific to traveling?
Diane. Yeah, same UTI story. I'm so glad you put your comment here. Like, I'm glad we're comfortable enough to talk about this. Yes. Oh my gosh. I've had more male riggers act like they were having their period on a call than women. Okay, that's funny. I'm sorry. Oh, cheers to taking care of yourself. If you take a Midol, then you'll be fine in 30 minutes. Awesome. IUDs can make the pain so much worse. Yes, this is true. But again, everybody's body is different, and it's up to us as individuals to take care of ourselves. Depo was the most emotionally wrecked birth control I've ever experienced. Again, everybody is going to react to different birth control differently. So, Sydney, I know you had something to add about the Depo.
So this is very specific that a lot of people don't know about. If you travel, tour, whatever, and you're on the Depo shot, which I understand is not for everybody, if you are comfortable giving yourself the shot, you can go pick it up at a pharmacy. Of course, talk about it with your doctor. I gave myself my Depo shot on the road. And like whenever I'm out of town, I go pick up the needle. It's typically a preloaded syringe, but you can also load it yourself. A doctor can teach you how to do it, get all the supplies and everything, and you can give yourself the shot so you don't have to worry about finding a clinic while you're not in town. And birth control is something that you can get filled across the country at different pharmacies, and they are permitted to transfer it. So if you're ever like, oh, I can't do the shot because I can't get a doctor's appointment while I'm on the road, you don't have to. You can literally go to the bathroom like after load in, take care of it, you're good. As long as you're fine with giving yourself a shot, and it hurts a lot less than you think it will.
Love it. Ladies, anybody want to unmic and contribute to the topic of periods and birth control? Mel.
I saw somebody's comment about Midol, and unfortunately, as everybody's body is different, Midol, Pamprin, ibuprofen does not help my cramps, unfortunately. And I am sorry guys out there, but I'm a very heavy bleeder. So I let my bosses know, I let the people working around me, I don't care if I'm in the air, I will make something safe and I will leave because I'm not going to bleed down my leg. And I use the period panties. I use, the Super Plus tampons. I've tried the cup. Unfortunately, the cup and all that other stuff, hour, 2 hours, and I'm leaking. So,
oh wow,
it's unfortunate, but that's how my body is. And so, yeah, it's different for every woman.
So what, as a heavy bleeder, and again, I'm so glad we get to have these conversations. I don't know that there's ever been a space for women in a job like this to have these sort of conversations, but as a heavy bleeder, what works best for you?
I use the Super Plus tampons when I'm at work. I try not to use tampons when I'm not working. I try to use other products, but I get the period panties as a backup for if I do start to feel myself leak. You know, then I'm protected. Because I have been at work. I have bled through a harness. Luckily, it was a harness owned by the company, so they basically deemed that was going to be the harness I used forever.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, that's my go-to.
I appreciate. I cannot even tell you guys how much I appreciate y'all sharing this. Does anybody else want to contribute to the periods and birth control topic? Renee.
I just want to say, additionally to the cup, I do IUD and the cup, but I do the disposable because oftentimes I'm in porta potties and ain't nobody got time for that.
Yep. I hear you. So. Guys, I'm so sorry. Plug your ears if you don't want to listen, or don't, because this shouldn't be a stigma anyway. Yeah, at the end of the day, after 12 hours, if I'm, changing out my menstrual cup, I'm doing it in the shower because it can get messy. So I feel you on the disposable and the porta potty situation, Renee, and that's good to know. No comment from Mans. Oh, you guys are an terrific audience. I am so appreciative that so many people are tuning in and listening. Ethan says, Mel, you shouldn't feel the need to apologize for the discussion. It's a biological function. We all have them. Yes. Ethan, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to get some period panties to give the men when they're whining on the call. Oh, I can't
Those
even
aren't
host
cheap.
anymore.
Those
Someone
aren't cheap.
take
Just
over
throw
the hosting
tampons
job
at
for
'em.
me because I'm dead. Oh my god.
They're not cheap.
You're gonna make me cry.
He actually wants the disposable ones that they give you in the hospital when you have a baby. Those are the ones that you want to give out. The mesh ones.
Oh my gosh, it's so hot in here. All right. Any last words before we move on from the periods and birth control topic? Awesome, Tammy. Thank you. Yeah, I'm dead. Oh, yeah. Yes, they have female underwear called Thinks. I still wear underwear and pad with that leak underwear on top. It's like double bagging yourself. Yep. Bill, thank you so much. I'm glad this is a useful discussion. Seriously, I don't know where else this discussion has been had before, so I'm glad we're doing it. Loving the honest, open conversations about what half my industry friends deal with as a matter of biology. Guys, I am loving your support right now. This is awesome. Men do encounter issues of tangled danglies. This is true. This is very true. Awesome. So let's move on. Let's do another rapid, like a funny question. Everybody unmute yourselves. In your best Elmo voice, tell me how you like your coffee, Katrina.
No.
Oh, Renee. I'll go first if I have to.
I don't think.
Does anyone know how to do an Elmo voice?
It's almost
What? You know what? If I'm the only person who does it, I don't even care.
Well, hey, Lauren, you actually have kids, so you might have the most experience with hearing that voice.
No.
I like my coffee black. Sometimes I put cream and sugar in it. Sydney?
Oh God. I like my coffee black like I like my harnesses.
Oh, I love it. Lauren.
I got nothing. My
Paw
kids are not
Patrol,
almost.
can you give us a Paw Patrol? How you like your coffee? I'm sorry. I totally judged you. I assumed.
No,
maybe
you're
your
right.
kids
My
were
kids are
watching Paw
totally
Patrol.
Paw Patrol kids. But I have no voice for that. Right and sweet? Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That was a bit of a question. I can't do this. I can't leave it on that. All right. How about a superhero catchphrase? Did you guys think about your superhero catchphrase? Katrina, I saw you nod. Give it to us.
Well, I believe what I told you was underestimate me, I dare you, because I think the one all along theme of my entire rigging career has been that no matter who I've worked for, no matter where I've been, at some point, some manager, some group of men have always decided to underestimate me based on my height, my body weight, my looks, my intelligence, whatever the case is. And I'm just really blessed that I have a personality type that I take all of that negativity and I use it to funnel me going, tell me I can't, and I'll show you 10 times harder that I can. And I don't do it to prove to them that I can. I do it to myself to say, well, I know that I can. Well, now I'm going to push myself even harder to prove I can do that and then some. So now not only have I done what you said I couldn't do, I've achieved even more. And so I use all that to make me that much better.
Word. Love it. Renee? Got a superhero catchphrase?
Oh, I have two, and they are R-rated. One is America, fuck yeah. And the second one is fucking teamwork. Those are mine.
I love it. All about it. Hell yeah. Mel, you got your superhero catchphrase?
Something that I say most often with my family is keep moving forward.
I love it. Solid. Sydney.
I also have two, but mine are more appropriate. The stereotypical, there is no try, only do. And
Nice.
then my favorite, my superpowers are powered by caffeine, copious amounts of caffeine. They're now in my blood. My blood is caffeine. If anybody who's ever worked with me has seen how many Red Bulls I consume on a gig,
No.
it's probably dangerous.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Okay. Yes, Lauren, give us your superhero catchphrase.
I think it's always that I band together with the other badass women who are around me all the time. So if you can show me that you're in some way better than or fill in the weakest link that I have, oh, I'm going to be all over that. If you are going to complete my circle of, inability that you're going to do something better than I am, I'm going to go to you, most definitely. And it's like go gadget, whatever. I'm going to go find that person who fills that hole.
Nice. We could all be in a video game with our catchphrases. I'm looking for a comment from Julie that came earlier, and we got so far into other conversation that I can't quite find it in my stream right now. I invite you, Julie, to copy and paste your question from earlier. It was something about outdoor rigging versus arena style and convention style. Huh. I can't go back. I can't go back. Oh no. Oh no. Forward thinking. The time is now. Julie says, thank you for this assembly. I hope to see more with women in all departments. Don't forget to mention all of the rigging classes going on with the IATSE. It's a perfect way to get into it during the pandemic. Absolutely. Anytime you can see classes, take them. I think online classes are exactly what our industry needed. Unfortunately, when I started in rigging, I had a mentor. I allowed sexual activity into the relationship and things turned bad. Long story short, I no longer talk to that person. That person slanders my name. And, it's not a situation I want other people to get in, to have to endure. But yeah, another thing with that situation was I was kind of groomed to believe that this mentor of mine was the only reputable source of knowledge. So I didn't ask my other colleagues for help. And so if I had a piece of advice for women or anybody who's aspiring to be a rigger, it would be to learn from as many people as you can. Don't rely on one person for all your information. Get knowledge wherever you can get knowledge. And if that's an online webinar or if that's from multiple colleagues around you, just soak in as much knowledge as you can from as many sources as you can. Brian says, one effect of this pandemic is that there will be a void of riggers who left the industry. Now it is time for women to make their mark. Heck yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for bringing up the question. So the question that I wanted to address for Julie earlier, it was who on this panel has done outdoor rigging as opposed to theater or convention center rigging, etc. Here it is. Oh, yeah. So, and the question is, do you see a lot of women when you're doing that outdoor rigging? Go ahead and unmute yourself. Chime in.
I do, but again, I'm in Washington. There are a large number of women in rigging here.
Yeah, that's awesome. We all need to be like Washington.
So I've done a little bit of outdoor rigging, and I do see women, like the women who rig do go out and do outdoor rigging. I just personally don't do a lot because, in case you can't tell, I'm the color of paper, and I have to bring I have straight up told people they have to inform me if the call is going to be outside, if the gig is going to be outside, because I will probably turn it down unless it's production or a very high pay rate, because it's not worth it to me to keep putting on sunscreen every 5 seconds. But I personally don't outdoor rig a lot because of that, and not because I'm a woman. I do see a lot of women doing that.
Yeah.
There's no difference between that and convention.
Yep. Renee?
I do everything from building giant stadium stages, Stageco, down to, little pop-up tents, convention center, you name it, anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So I actually want to move on to relationships. I know this wasn't an original question that I prepped you guys with, but since we're on this topic, Ethan says, if your mentor thinks they are the end all be all of rigging, find a new mentor. Solid advice. Bob says, don't get into relationships with coworkers is a great bit of advice. I agree to an extent. And you know what? You guys can have a different opinion than me, but here's my take on it. Because who are you around most of the time? Where are you going to meet people? If you spend all your time at work, you're probably going to find something in there. Personally, my life partner, I met him at an ANSI fall protection committee meeting for self-retracting devices. What a nerdy place to meet someone. And anyway, so on the relationships thing, I think it's important for the party, the two people involved, to respect boundaries. Keep your personal and professional lives separate. And if one or the other person in your party doesn't respect that boundary, they're probably not the partner for you, and you should probably move on. Do you guys have a take on relationships? Have you dated in the industry? Sydney, girl, tell us.
So I don't know if everybody else shares my opinion with this. I think it's different for a woman dating a guy than a male rigger trying to find a girlfriend. I find that I relate much more to men who are also in the industry, whether or not they're riggers or I've dated an audio guy, no matter what. Yeah, I slummed it a little bit, but no matter what department we're in, I find I relate more to them, and also they're more tolerant if I rant for an hour about Chinese shackles. But the most important thing to me, I strongly disagree, because guys don't understand that there is a very strong issue with a lot of non-industry men being okay with our schedule or how we work or what we have to deal with. And men in the industry will be more understanding. You will have more in common. They'll understand the schedule. They'll understand the stress, things that non-industry people won't. But my biggest thing is keeping it low key. I have two really big rules whenever it comes to industry dating. My first one is I want almost nobody to know about it that's in the industry. I want almost none of the coworkers to know. And I guarantee you, there are a couple of short relationships I've been in that a lot of people have zero idea about, and that is how it stays. But it's really important to me because the guy, it's not going to affect him. Me, it's going to affect me because they're automatically going to assume that's how I get work, because I have had rumors spread about me in Vegas that I sleep around to get work, because I start getting all these calls, and I get them because I'm good and because I can do the job. And it had nothing to do with the fact that the person who recommended me as a man. That is the other point that I want to make, is I make a very huge point that if I am ever dating somebody, especially if they are in rigging or production or anything, with some slight exceptions, depending on the situation, I do not take work from them. I have had a guy that I dated for, I want to say like a couple of months or something. Sweet guy, we're still friends. He actually had a gig, and he talked to me. He's like, hey, I want you to be one of my riggers. He was the lead rigger, production rigger for this booth. And I told him that, no, I can't do that. He's like, but I really want you there. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't feel comfortable, because I would question whether or not you had me there because we're dating or because I'm good. And I make that very clear delineation. It's a balance between keeping it secret and making sure that I don't ever cross into the, I'm just here because I'm somebody's girlfriend, or I'm just here because he wants to date me. I make very pointed, and it would really suck that if it ever came to like a top like $5,000 a week A-level rock and roll tour, if I question whether or not like the person who is giving me that gig wanted to sleep with me, or if we were dating, I probably wouldn't take it, because I don't want that on my conscience.
I've been removed from a call because the head rigger's wife would have had a problem with me being on the same call. And me and the head rigger, no relationship. There's nothing there, purely professional. And yeah, I was removed from a call because his wife would have had an issue with it. And I think that, if you can't trust your partner, you're not in the right partnership. There's got to be trust there, because they had an issue with between their relationship. I'm the one who had to suffer because I'm the woman. And, that's not something I can easily prove. Like I cannot just take that to court and say, hey, I've been discriminated against because I'm a woman. I can't prove it. The only reason I know that happened is because someone, a colleague, a mutual colleague, informed me of this situation. And other than that, there's no way I could prove it, right? So, when people talk about stigma, microaggression, all those words that kind of get thrown around nowadays, that's kind of what we're talking about, like that implicit bias, those things. They absolutely exist. And a lot of times they're really hard to prove, but it's something that happens, unfortunately, in Sydney. I'm with you there. I've been in situations where I find out after the fact, someone doing the scheduling had a crush on me. And then it leaves me thinking, well, why am I here? Am I here because they wanted to look at my boobs, or are they here because I'm good at what I do? And yeah, someone has said that to me before, and it's unfortunate that we have to question ourselves that way. And, it puts a lot of pressure on us to go above and beyond with all of our certifications, with all of our training, with all of our work experience, because we have to fight so hard so that there's no doubt in someone's mind that we're there because someone is trying to sleep with us. And unfortunately, it does happen. But why does that have to be put on us? Why does that have to be our problem that we're dealing with? Panelists, anything else you want to say about relationships in the industry, Mel?
I think it's unfortunate that there's still the male-female stigma bullshit that happens. If a woman sleeps with a man, she's trying to get a job. The man can fuck as many, excuse my language, stagehands as he wants, and it's not a big deal. And it still happens. I know a very, very strong woman in the industry over here, and you surround people that you want to aspire to be, or that kind of fall on the same path as you. She is a lead. She's very strong. She's strong-headed. So what attracts that? Other people who are strong, so she's dated men that are in, quote unquote, good positions.
Positions of power. Oh, I've had that
you.
said about me.
And regardless if she's in, like they could be owner of a freaking audio company, but if she's sleeping with him, then it's, oh, look, she's trying to get into audio now. But the truth of the matter is that if you look at her background, she does rigging, she does AV, she does, back of house, front of house. I mean, she does so much in the industry alone, and it's skills that she acquired and that she learned on her own. Has nothing to do with the guys that she slept with. But if you ask a few people, they will say, oh, she slept her way to the positions that she got. I've known her for over 10 freaking years, and no, she did not. She dated men of power, not because of where she was trying to get in life, because that's who she attracts, because she's a strong, powerful woman.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating, and I'm sorry if I'm a little passionate about it, but we still deal with that stigma. It doesn't matter if it's in our industry or any other industry. It is a freaking stigma that still exists, and it's bullshit.
Absolutely. When you get into a relationship with someone, you want that person not to complete you. You want that person to enhance and complement you. You want to be on the same level as someone that you're in a relationship with, because at the end of the day, it's a partnership, right? You guys are growing together. You're learning together. You're contributing to each other. You're contributing to society together. Yeah, Mel, I'm with you there. I feel very strongly about this topic as well. Hear, hear. Yes, I love the audience, you guys. You guys are so awesome. Thank you all so much. I'm going to say it again. I'm glad we're all here having these discussions. Katrina, Renee, Lauren, do you guys have anything you want to add to the topic of relationships and the industry? Katrina.
So I've dated a couple of people in rigging, specifically in the industry, and one of the things I'm really glad I learned early on from my first relationship, which was very mentally abusive, and at the time I didn't know that until I was out of the relationship, was that I had to stand alone as my own person. I had to make sure that for my own mental health, not even to do with my job or my career, was that I had to make sure I was seen as my own individual, not seen as an attachment of that other person. I had one really long-term relationship in the business that, all in all, we had a rule from the very beginning, was that at work, we were coworkers. We treated each other exactly the same as we would treat any other coworker. And that way there was never a question of, well, he was favoring her because that's his girlfriend, or, she was covering for him because that's her boyfriend. Like, there was never any of that. And it does make a huge difference, because being able to stand alone and feel that you have the confidence to show, like, I speak for my own work, my own mistakes, my own, decisions, and not constantly have those tagged back to somebody else, or people talking behind you saying that you're there because of so-and-so. My longest relationship, I was actually in rigging before he was. So there were already people that knew from the get-go. It was never a question of I was there because of him, because I was actually already there. But the good thing was that for the majority of that relationship, that individual was actually a great person to work with, because I learned from his strengths and he learned from mine, and they were so different. That person is an incredible climber and is an incredible MacGyver, and that person gave me a lot of insight and a lot of training and learning for skills that I didn't innately have, whereas my strengths were elsewhere, and I could help him with things that he didn't necessarily innately have, that were maybe more education based. And like you said, you don't want to compliment, but in this case, we were a good team at work, that my skills did complement his complemented mine. But then it was a question of recognizing when that relationship was no longer positive or productive and being able to get out of it. I'm just glad that in the aftermath of that, I was able to get out of it in a way that said I still stood alone as a person. My work was not affected by my split from that relationship. His work was not affected by the split from our relationship. And I thought that was really key, and that also showed me that especially in the city that I'm in, with the amount of networking and the people that come in and out for tours and major shows that are prepped here, or the amount of transient people from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, that I was still going to stand alone as my own person and have my own reputation. And so was he. And we were going to be able to continue to work together in the industry productively, and it not negatively affect either of us because we had chosen our relationship to, no longer be productive for either of us. So I'm glad I learned that really early on. But I definitely would also still side by saying that you really need to know the person you're getting into a relationship with and how their view of you in that relationship is going to be, because I do stand by saying that it sometimes is not a good idea to date people in your industry, and you need to be careful where that person is connected, how they may lash out or react if you do end up breaking up with them, and if it may come back to you, how are you going to handle that? Those are all conversations, I think, that no matter what industry if you date in your industry, you should probably have those conversations up front so that you don't end up in a situation in the aftermath where you have to figure out how to get yourself out of all those negative stigmas if you can avoid them from the beginning.
Absolutely. I think that is Katrina, what you said is so important for young women who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they're like just barely legally adults, and they're navigating relationships. And, this might sound weird for me to say, but it was at least my reality. I like older men. I tend to gravitate towards people who are 10 years my senior, because that's kind of like my mentality, and I relate on that level with people who are at 10 years older than me. So at the same time, though, when looking back on when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I wasn't, sure, I was smart and mature, but I wasn't always the most mature. I wasn't always having the best judgment. And so like, I'm not gonna say you can't date in the industry. I'm not gonna say you can't date someone older than you. I think everything that Katrina touched are very important things to consider if you're navigating through this topic. What do you guys think when men say, oh, well, she's 18, so she's legal? Oh, Mel's got some words. I
hate that comment. I think it's disgusting. I know that some men date younger women and some women date younger men, but when a guy says a statement like that, my first thought is, and if she was 16, would you still bang her?
Ooh.
Can you not get a woman your age? Are they too mature for you? But there's always this crap that, oh, women, they mature faster than men. No, women are forced to be responsible.
Oh, that's powerful and very true. Yeah.
It's still a hard thing, and I know that women, we are trying so hard to change things, but there are still a lot of families that raise the women to be strong and to cook and to clean and to raise the kids. And the men are allowed to play sports and play toys. And, there's the double standard, and I still see a lot of that. Luckily not in my family, because I was raised by a strong woman. My dad is great too, but my mom, she made it a point, women are going to be strong, but she made the boys just as responsible.
I love it. And responsible and accountable for your actions, right?
Exactly. But back to that question, sometimes you just can't help but look at a guy when he's like, oh, but she's legal. I'm like, you're a disgusting pig.
Your prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So I think I'm now really an adult.
So I had to say that I'm not really adult, but I'm raising two tiny children. There are certainly days where adulting is not my thing, and I am not good at it, and I still want to have a piece of cake for breakfast and call it a day. However, you have to do something. You're only as good as what you think that you're able to do. So at 18, would I be in the same mental capacity that I am now? Absolutely not. And I was making some dumb decisions at 18. They might have seemed smart to those on the outside, but they were not smart in the long run. And it is hard to be in that age bracket and think that about yourself, because you're always thinking that you're making the right decisions, that you're moving in a forward progress, that you're doing what society says that you should be doing for yourself. But that vision and those glasses are changing every day, you know, and it's up to those of us who are standing around watching those 18-year-olds making those decisions, sometimes to just, you know, pull them aside and say, hey, did you think that through? Or like, could I offer you a little bit of advice on this side of the fence? When I was doing that, I did this, it ended badly. You might not see that bad consequence now, but let me tell you that I already lived it, and I don't want you to live it. I want you to be better for what I've already learned.
Sydney, what, you unmiked yourself. What did you want to say?
So before I commented, I want to ask, are we talking in general, or are we talking like guy talk on a gig, whenever guys tend to be extremely sexist and misogynistic, forgetting that there's a woman right next door that's going to call them on all their shit?
I think my original question was about when, if say a woman decides she's going to engage into or enter a relationship, it doesn't work out. Maybe she gets harassed. Maybe her name gets slandered afterwards. Maybe she gets threatened. All these things can and do happen. So, but then when a person, man or woman, responds with, oh, but she was 18, oh, but she was 19, 20, 21, in that age bracket, she's an adult, she should know better. What do you have to say about a comment like that?
Well, let's start out with I decided it was a good idea at 19 to start dating a guy that had absolutely no prospects, did not know how to function on his own. Still, this was the horrible relationship that ended that made me start going to this industry, so I guess I thank him for that. But, still lived with his dad, and he was in his, mid-late 20s, still lived with his dad, still, didn't really know how to do anything, didn't save his money, those are the life decisions I made at 19, 20, 21, 22. And now I don't date men in power or men that are successful because they're in power, they're successful. I date them because, pardon my language, they have their shit together. At 19, 20, 21, I was more forgiving in the whole, oh, well, he's going to get better. We can work through life together. And now it's I don't want to deal with your shit. Oh, you do all of this. This is all your successes. I'm going to go date you. You know how to do your taxes. I'm not going to sit here with little dude bro who spends his money on figurines, which is fine if you can afford it, but spends his money on figurines and can barely pay rent and doesn't know how to do his taxes. That's my stance on that. That is what 19-year-old Sydney thought was a good idea, was to experience life together. No, I don't want to have that experience. I want nice, happy, successful men, so I don't have to hold your hand and teach you how to live.
Period. Katrina.
So just listening to what Sydney had to say there really quick, a lot of times people forget that people who are ambitious are attracted to other people that are equally ambitious because you're goal-oriented in your personality already. A lot of people misconstrue men or women that are attracted to quote-unquote powerful people in powerful positions as seeking power, but aren't actually taking into context that person's own personality. I mean, I happen to be a very alpha female personality. I'm very strong. I'm very assertive. I'm very confident. I'm very ambitious. I'm very driven, and I'm very goal oriented. So of course I'm going to be attracted to men that are going to help me achieve those goals, that are going to help me to be ambitious, and I'm going to prop them up. They're going to prop me up. I'm not going to be a personality type that's going to put myself with somebody that has nothing to offer me. So of course power attracts power. That's why, if you look at the top CEOs of the Forbes 500 list, they're almost all married to somebody else of equal education, ambition, stature, determination, accomplishment. There's a reason you attract the type of person you are when you walk into a room. So, you know, people should take that into consideration on either side of the coin, that it's not necessarily always a power grab, but just an expression of your own personality, that you look for in others what you see positive in yourself.
Love it. I want to address yes, Renee.
I just want to say that I think these other young ladies, including yourself, have touched every subject I could ever say on this. Like, I've experienced a lot of everything that they've all talked about. So
I love you know what? I love your validation. Thank you, Renee. I want to address some comments that came in. Kayla says, I know as a female rigger, there have been moments that have kept me from completely embracing my feminine self in certain situations, to be careful and tiptoe around not getting unwanted attention or upsetting coworkers, partners. Thankfully, I work with phenomenal people, so it isn't an issue, but this is something I have felt. I'm with you there. I don't know how to pronounce this name, so I'm not going to attempt it. My name is Siobhan, so, you know, it gets butchered all the time. Maybe I will try Borak. Sorry. I'm a rope access instructor and mountain guide. I met my wife on mountain climbing. She is a mountaineer too, so don't be afraid. I have 2 kids and have been with my wife for 22 years. See? You never know when you're going to meet the right person. Diane says, an ex made it his mission to destroy my career/reputation. Every intimate detail and problem we had was on blast to everyone we worked with. I had to leave town to get away from it and start over. Diane, your story sounds very similar to mine. I also have, that ex-mentor of mine who threatened to show explicit pictures of us and said, I'm going to show these to this employer, this person, that person. You're never going to rig again. He threatened my career with photos of us fornicating. So, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that's called sextortion, and that's illegal. But I didn't know better when I was 20 years old. So we had an excellent question that came in. Oh, Amanda's always got great comments. Those of us that are older need to support these 18, 19, 20-year-olds when they encounter situations and help them navigate the road out of those dark places. Yeah, I kind of want to cry a little bit because Amanda's the one for me. Amanda's the only female rigger I knew at the time, and she helped me out of my dark place. So yeah, that really hits home for me. So thank you, Amanda. Yeah, yay, alpha females. Oh, someone take over the hosting for me now. Okay, excellent question came in. I've got to find it again. Okay, Ryan says, as a guy, what's the best way to address misogynistic behavior like that from other guys in the crew on site? Who wants to take this? Mel.
Don't be afraid to say something to them. I wish more men stuck up for us women and said things to other guys. I know that we do have men here in the Pacific Northwest that are quick to say that's not funny and don't say things like that. And if you said that in front of one of the female riggers, you'd probably get punched in the face. Our guys here, the majority of them, are really good and really quick to stand up for us. And I wish that this was a more common thing across the US, across the world, because I've heard things and seen things and talked to other women in different areas. And quite frankly, I'm shocked by some of the shit that we still have to put up with. I joined this industry because I felt that women were treated more equal. We got equal pay in this industry versus some of the other places in some of the other industries. So thank you, Tyler. It's just unfortunate. And so, yes, men, please don't be afraid to stand up for women. Don't be afraid to tell a misogynistic pig to shut the fuck up.
Yep. Katrina.
Honestly, it speaks volumes about your character as a person. If you're uncomfortable with it, it doesn't matter if that girl is present or not, because it could be a group of people speaking in one part of the building about a female that's fully aware or unaware that's completely in a different area. The point is, if you're uncomfortable with it, say something. And at the end of the day, if that person who is being talked about, be it male or female, hears about it, you're more than likely going to get support and be thanked for it than anything, because you're standing up and being a better human being. It speaks volumes about who you are, how you were raised, and the type of person that you want to be in the world. And you shouldn't have any fear of saying anything at all, whether it's in front of men, women, bosses, people beneath you on the tier of command, whatever. If you're uncomfortable, just say something.
Absolutely. Sydney.
So mine might be a little bit controversial. It depends on two different variables. If the woman who is the target of this is new or inexperienced, then 100% jump up and like say something to the guy, like make it known that it's not okay. If the woman it's happening to is more experienced, and I have a great short example about this, if she is more experienced, let her take that power first. Let her call it out and be like, that's not, if she seems to be the type who's willing to do that, like let her step out and go, that's not okay. Like let it be known that she has the power to do that, then back her up. My biggest experience, I was in tech in Ohio, and I'm sure we all know the Bubba type riggers. Well, the house rigger there was a Bubba type rigger. And he was very much like, whenever they knew that, yeah, hi, I'm running the show. Obviously didn't go over well, and he was the type to call me sweetheart, but I wasn't going to correct him because he was my local lead. So I'm like, just kind of dealt with it. And then it came to a point where we had to rig just like a single, it was like, I think it was 2 sticks of 12-inch. And it had to be at low profile. And I was off doing something else, and they brought me over. They're like, we can't figure out how to wrap this. And the lead rigger's like, no, I got how to wrap this. It's fine. And he wanted to wrap it on the 2 bottom cords, just the bottom cords, and pick it up, which is highly unstable. Like, I'm not rigging something that's going to be on a line set from the 2 bottom cords of the truss and pick it up like that. That's not going to happen. And like, I knew other wraps to do to give it a low profile and help it like do what we needed it to do. And he wasn't going to let me. Like, it was known that like, I'm responsible for this. Like, I'm the production, I'm responsible. And he was not letting me do my job. And then finally I buckled down, and he was doing things like, well, sweetheart, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been a lead rigger for 30 years. And we all know that saying. You can be a rigger for 30 years. Nobody could have died, but that doesn't mean that you're good. And it doesn't mean that you're safe. Longevity does not mean good or safe. You can do something terrible for 50 years and just get lucky. And I was very pointed, and I looked at it and was like, well, this is my show. I'm the rigger. I'm responsible for it. And this is what we're doing. And at that point, the men, like the other local men, popped up, and they're like, yeah, dude, this really is her show. You're being really disrespectful. And it let me take that power. Like, as a new rigger, they don't really have that confidence, but let the woman make a stance that she's the one that's going to control this, and she has the power to shoot you down, then step in and back her up. Don't come in white knighting if you think she's going to defend herself first.
Excellent points. Anybody else?
I would just say that really depends on the person and the situation. I agree with Sydney, and I also disagree with her only on the fact that all of the men that I work with damn well know that I'm fully capable of handling myself, and that I shut down a lot of situations on my own very quickly, very abruptly, and very assertively, and don't need any assistance. And yet I have lots of male coworkers that have still stepped in and made comments or said things, and I would never fault them for that, because it's them being respectful of my friendship with them being my coworker and our common workplace. And sometimes you also have to remember that the more people that express that they're uncomfortable with what's said, the new people as they come in, the new people that are getting acclimated to the building, the crew, the people, the showroom, whatever it is, the more they see that positive reinforcement that those negative things are not okay, the less likely they are to participate in it, and the less likely they are to perpetuate that action. So as much as, yes, you should definitely let people, when you feel that they're going to be able to handle the situation on their own, do so if they want to, or if they're the type of person that can handle it and will. It still doesn't hurt to go ahead and voice that support either before or after. And I would never fault any of my coworkers for stepping up before, after, or with me in any voice of support for myself or any other coworker in any type of harassment situation, because the more positive enforcement you have, the better.
I do want to say one thing. So like after the fact, I would tell them like, hey, I got that. Next time, just stand by. My biggest thing is if it's a woman who can defend herself, the guy needs to be a witness. Like stand there, be a witness, acknowledge that that guy is being a misogynistic jerk. Acknowledge it. If this is an existing behavior, and I'm going to say the obvious thing, somebody very close to me in the industry told me the best way to take care of that is to make it known. The best way to take care of misogyny, sexual harassment is to make it known. And I'm not saying that as the woman we should do that. I'm saying the guys should be like, oh, hey, I have an opportunity to like get a call and like fill a call. You know what? I'm not going to put this misogynistic guy on here because he doesn't support every other rigger. And that's an important thing. Like make it known who treats women a certain way. And be a witness, be willing to back them up and be willing to reinforce, yeah, that's what I saw. If she ever has to go to somebody, be willing to be like, yeah, that is exactly what happened and it is not okay.
Yeah, you can always report that kind of thing to your lead. And then if it's your lead who's being, disrespectful, then going to someone higher than that person. Just to make the issue known. It doesn't even need to be like an in the moment big deal sort of thing. But like Sydney said, it is important to start holding each other accountable to these microaggressions, really. Because yeah, I don't understand why we would reward someone who's disrespectful to their own teammates, no matter what that disrespect looks like. And, it's all about team dynamics, especially if you're climbing and you're uprigging or you're doing rope access and now you're in a position where you may need to rescue someone should that situation occur. Why would you put a misogynist on a team with another woman? And I will say that when I was in my dark place, back when I was 20 years old and had just been threatened, I said no to a lot of work because I was legitimately afraid that if I were on an uprigging call and I fell from the beams and needed an assisted rescue, I thought my coworkers would laugh at me and leave me for dead. I truly believed that because that's what this person who threatened me said. Who are they going to side with? Me, who they've been rigging with for 15 plus years, or you, a little riglet who knows nothing? Or people talk behind your back all the time and blah, blah, blah. Like, why would we reward any kind of behavior like that? We should absolutely hold each other accountable to that. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. Anybody else? All right. So Brian Leister he asks, Renee and Sydney, we have been trained together. What can you share about that experience to help me as a trainer to be better? Brian really wants to know. He's asked this question twice now.
Well, honestly, I think you did a really good job, Brian. You actually, made space for me to put in input, and I learned from you quite a bit, and you also said that I taught you a little bit. So I think that we really had a really good class. That was really fun. And you are also very uplifting to me in my career as someone that I've met and who is male, I guess you would say. You've done a lot for me on a professional level, helping me with my resume or telling me about different positions that are out there, giving me a positive aspect of, I'm badass, and I really appreciate it. So I think, you should just keep being who you are, because I appreciate you.
Oh, Brian says, I learned more from Renee than she did from me. Sydney, any thoughts? You were called out on this one.
So, I'm going to go in a little bit of a Brian fan team. I'm going to put this into perspective. For those of you who don't know, Brian is at the Lidditz, Pennsylvania location of CM. I live in Las Vegas. And before I lived in Texas, I have taken 2 classes from this man. The first one was while I was in Texas, and it was the first RTC class that they had, so the first motor repair class that they had, and it was actually free. So that was why I went there. But the day that I took the class was actually the day after my father had died. And he was very understanding. I'm going to cry. Hi. But it was the day after my father had died. I still lived in Vegas. I was just getting into this, was like, this is a class I need to take, and it's cheaper for me to take it here because it's free and travel's not that much. And I took him out, like, I talked to him before the first class, and I was like, my dad just died yesterday. I'm going to try to be here as much as possible, present, but I might have to step out on occasion because this is a thing that's happening. And he was very understanding about that, and he was very kind. And just that interaction with him made me want to travel across the country to take my SPRAT class. Now, any of you that know, Las Vegas has a lot of places to take your SPRAT class. I traveled from Las Vegas to Pennsylvania, and cost was not an issue with the whole price of the class, because with IATSE, fun fact, IATSE, you can get that reimbursed. So I actually just paid for it upfront, got it reimbursed later. So the cost of the class didn't matter. I traveled across country. I took care of like airfare, like everything, to go take a class from this man because he is very understanding. And a big important thing about the SPRAT specifically, okay, I have less than I did then because quarantine, I had no arm strength. I have 0 arm strength. I have never climbed before. I determined that SPRAT was going to be a good idea because of the automation work that I do. I want to be able to go up to the truss and not have to rely on local having to do it in case pre-show something happens and I need to fix something. Like, I got it not as a, I'm going to be a climber. I got it as a, I need to have this as a just in case. And I was afraid I wouldn't be able to do the class, but he was very understanding about I would have to make some adjustments, and because I'd never climbed a rope before. I'd never worn a climbing harness. I didn't know how half that crap worked. He was very understanding and helping me figure out how to get up there and how to make my body and my legs work for me. And that is something that if any females can take a class from Brian, especially the SPRAT class, go do that. Travel to Littis. It's worth the money. Get an Airbnb. It's worth the money to pay a little bit extra to go out there and get better training. But if you can't do that, look for a trainer closer to you that women recommend. Because as much as I hate to admit this, women's bodies are not the same as men. Leg things are going to be naturally more easy for a lot of us than arm things. Yeah, a lot of women have arm strength. I am not one of those women. And the fact that he, and I'm sure other trainers, can take something that is extremely difficult for me and go, you have to climb this specific way. You can't like heave-ho like Macho McGee over here, but you can do it. Let me show you how. And that was extremely supportive. And I thank him a lot for that. And if you guys can't take a class for him, definitely look for ones that women recommend specifically.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, on the comment of leg strength does come naturally to women. Rope access work it's all legs. You know, I don't know how many people have been in a class or have been out on a job site. Typically, it's in class, right? Because you're able to see newer people to rope access. Guys tend to want to like muscle their way up there with their arms and use their biceps, and then they're just totally tired out from all of it. Use your legs, guys and girls. Use your legs. That's what you got to do in rope access. And yeah, absolutely, Sydney. I think that's a great suggestion. Is to ask people around you, ask people who you trust. Where should you go take certain classes? You know, I don't think that's a bad. I don't think that's bad advice at all. I love it.
I will also say in his class, and this is something that I do want to caution people about. In his class, I went in knowing that I would suck for at least the first bit. Do acknowledge that going to classes, make sure that you get a trainer that's not going to judge you. And also, if you feel uncomfortable taking a class near you because you're afraid you'll run into people that you know and they will judge you for not being able to do the thing, it's fine to travel. Go travel where you, it's fine. But do remember that.
Don't be the girl that sucks.
He made me feel very like okay in the fact that I was not good at all.
Oh. You know what? You're too hard on yourself. I know that. Yeah, you're too hard on yourself. I can tell in the conversations that we've had prior to this live stream, Sydney. I know you hold yourself to a very high standard. Yep. Great. So really quick, here's another rapid fire question. Ask for permission or ask for forgiveness? Katrina.
Depends on the situation.
Ooh,
there are definitely situations where I would just go ahead and do it based on my best risk assessment. And then there are other situations where I would stop and ask. And I think that is completely subjective to the situation and the people involved.
Nice. Renee. We'll get back to Renee in just a second.
I do permission. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I give permission, or I ask for permission first, because I don't want to have to take it down and then put it up again. I'd rather just, do it right the first time. Maybe I'll just ask for forgiveness later. But when it comes to rigging, I always ask permission.
Mel, ask for permission or forgiveness?
I had the same answer as Katrina. I wrote down, depends on how dire the situation. If it's something that needs immediate attention, I might just do it, ask for forgiveness later. But if it's something that I can hold off and I can get the knowledge from someone who has more, I'll ask them first.
Sydney.
So if it is a safety thing, and if it's I might be doing something kind of sketchy, typically ask for permission. But if it's I'm working as production and I need to go steal these 4 lighting hands to help me go pick up this truss, ask for forgiveness. 100%. If it's not a safety thing, if it's not like destroying the artistic vision, ask for forgiveness. Run quick, do it quickly, return the people. It's cool. Just ask for forgiveness.
I love it. Lauren.
I think in my current role as what I function, I'm like 70% ask for forgiveness and 30% permission. When I'm a rigger, that goes way down. That's much more on the conservative side, like Katrina said. But again, it is all based on the situation that you're in. You're risk assessing. You're making the best decisions for you and your crew.
Mm-hmm. I tend to be more of an ask for forgiveness person, which leads to some embarrassing moments. Maybe I need to rethink how I approach this. Well, we've been going for 2 hours. I know I had way more questions for you guys, but I know people need to get on with their days. We've had so many people tuning in and sticking with us the entire 2 hours. Holy cow, you guys. Thank you for spending your Sunday with us. And ladies, thank you guys so much for taking the time to be on this panel and addressing, so many topics that people are afraid to discuss. And, in my experience with fall protection and rescue, I find that not talking about certain topics leads to the weirdest misconceptions. I've had someone in a fall pro class say, women should get harnesses with extra padding in the legs because if they fall, their lady bits might fall out. Lady bits. Are we talking about the uterus? Are we talking about the fallopian tubes, the ovary? I don't know. What lady bits? And like, this is what you're traveling across the country to teach people? Wow. Okay. So that is a big moment in my career, among others, where I thought to myself, we need to start talking about these discussions. And you know what? For women who are younger and they're just entering adulthood, they're just entering this industry, and they've got the questions about, what do I do if I'm on my period and I'm 70 feet in the air? What do I do if I've got these mad period cramps? What do I do if this, that, or the other? What harness is best for women? Should we have ladies harnesses? No, it's all dependent on the individual and the body type and so many other factors. So I'm just beyond thrilled you guys were here to answer these questions. Oh, and relationships. I was not planning to go there, but we went there and I'm really glad we did. You guys are super awesome. We're getting a lot of thank yous from the audience. You guys, thank you guys so much. Be sure to, wow, here I go messing up my outro. Be sure to subscribe to Industry Explorers on YouTube. I am almost at 200 subs. That's very exciting. But I will say I'm doing another giveaway once we reach 1,000 subscribers. And if there's an industry or career path that you want to learn more about, shoot me a DM and I will make sure to interview people in that career to talk about how to get started, what education certs you need, the good and bad parts of that career, and more. So with that said, you guys, my name is Siobhan Colleen. You're watching Industry Explorers, and I will see you all on our next adventure. Take care, everybody.